What's going on, everybody? This is Tony. Welcome you back to another episode of Tony's Keys. This is episode 5 of a weekly series where I let my CLZ Comics app pick the keys that I'm going to spotlight. So let's roll that intro and we'll get right to it. Alright, so to start this thing off, from 1991, we have Deathlock, issue number 1. Key significance is that this is the first ongoing solo title featuring Deathlock. It's a pretty cool series. This is the only one I have of this series. I used to have a few of them, but it was a pretty good read in the 90s. Deathlock is a pretty cool character, and for those of you who don't know, I believe it was Megadeth's Countdown to Extinction. They had a song called Cyclotron. It was based off of Deathlock, because that's one of Dave Mustaine's favorite characters. Yeah, this is a pretty cool and cheap book to find if you ever want to add it to your collection. Next up, we have, from 1989, we have the Uncanny XMen issue 255. It's a really cool cover. And the significance of this book is that it's the first appearance of Matsuo Tsurayaba. And I don't really remember the character that well. I believe he played a prominent role in the Uncanny XMen Acts of Vengeance crossovers that are a few issues after this, where they try to make Psylocke the next Mandarin or Lady Mandarin. So I remember it was a pretty good read. That's about all I can remember of it. It's part of my long Uncanny XMen run. So if you get a chance, yeah, I think this is a pretty good book you can pick up, and I think you can still find this one for fairly cheap as well. Alright, next up, from Amazing Spider-Man 1976, we have Amazing Spider-Man issue number 162. This is the first full appearance of Jigsaw, character that would later become one of the Punisher's main enemies. Of course, if you know the origin of Jigsaw, you know, I believe the Punisher threw him through a plate glass window or something, and it messed up his face, and it made it look like a jigsaw puzzle. But this is a really cool book. We got Nightcrawler guest starring. It was a pretty good little 2-3 issue run, and I'm not sure how much it goes for, but I'd say it's still fairly affordable, and it's a pretty cool issue to have of Amazing Spider-Man. Next up, from 1993, we have Batman issue 492. Very cool book. This issue kicked off the Nightfall storyline. It was 19 parts, and of course it kicked off the whole Nights trilogy, where Batman has to deal with all of the inmates being released from Arkham after Bane shot a rocket into the asylum. This is also the death of Film Freak. Nightfall is one of my, I think it's my second favorite Batman storyline of all time. Of course, you know, later on, I believe I already featured the breaking of the Bat. So it's a very important storyline to have if you enjoy reading Batman, and I would encourage you to pick it up. Okay, next up, from 1994, an adaptation of a very popular animated film. This is Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this is probably the greatest Batman animated film ever made. People may argue with me, but that's just what I think. This is the first appearance of Andrea Beaumont. And you can't see it, but up here on the wall, I actually have another version, the little bitty one that came in the VHS copy of Batman Mask of the Phantasm. You can actually still get this for pretty affordable. I know I picked up this copy and the other one from my comic shop for like... But if you enjoy the Phantasm, if you've enjoyed this animated film, then it's a no-brainer to pick it up, because it's a really good read and a good adaptation of the film. Alright, from 2021, from James Tynion IV, or Tynion IV, it's a DC Black label, and one of my favorite reads of that year. This is The Nice House on the Lake, issue number 1. Now, the key significance for this is that it says it's the first appearance of Walter, Ryan Kane, and the rest of the characters. There was like a whole bunch of characters. Walter ends up inviting some of his friends to this house on the lake. Here's the second print. And basically over the weekend, the whole world is destroyed. And these people are trying to figure out what to do. And it's a pretty interesting story as well. And there's a third print as well. But it was a pretty awesome storyline, and I highly recommend picking it up. The single issues are still fairly affordable, and I believe they have them in trade as well. But it's a really good series. And the last I'd heard, unless it's changed, I don't think it's over. I think they're planning on doing some more. At least Tynion said that they were going to do some more featuring Walter. So if they do, I'm looking forward to reading some new stuff. Next up, one of my favorite Batman spin-offs from 1992. This is Batman Sword of Azrael issue number 1. Now, I consider this a Nightfall tie-in or Nightfall prelude because you had books building up to Nightfall. Now, this one is the first appearance of Jean Paul Valley and his father. I believe his father's name was John Luke. Might be wrong on that. But you see Jean Paul Valley in this one, but he's not Azrael. His father is Azrael. So it's the first appearance of his father as Azrael. Jean Paul puts the costume on in later issues. But there's a lot of books that I consider like prequel or books that set up the stage. You had the Sword of Azrael series. You had Vengeance of Bane. You had the Batman Legends of the Dark Knight Phantom 5-part series that was like, I believe it was issues 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. All those books built up to Nightfall. And also the few issues of the Batman series leading up before Nightfall. I believe it was like around, I really don't remember, 484 or something leading up to it. All these books are great preludes, and if you're going to have the whole Nightfall set, I think you should pick these up as well. But this, have anything to do with Nightfall aside, this is still an awesome series. You know, it's the story of how John Paul Valley ends up becoming Azrael. And of course, we all know that the John Paul Valley Azrael later becomes Batman after Bruce gets his back broken. All that stuff. This is a really great series to pick up. I think it's still fairly affordable. And if you don't want to buy the single issues, you can always buy the trade. Alright, so next up from 1990, we have what I call the beginning of the Infinity Gauntlet. It starts here. And that is the Thanos Quest issue number 1. Now, some people may say that it started in Silver Surfer, and they may be right. But this is where Thanos begins his quest for the 6 Infinity Gems. And that's the key significance of this issue, is that it's the first mention of the name Infinity Gems, because before this, they were all referred to as the Soul Gems. And they were all actually green. They were all the same color, but they kind of, expanded it with this series. But yes, in my opinion, this is where Infinity Gauntlet begins, because this is the books where Thanos goes and gets the gems from all the elders, and it starts here. It's a 2-issue series, nice square-bound book. You can still pick them up, and a few years ago they actually reprinted the Thanos Quest in 1 volume. But if you really want them, this is the one you want to get. Alright, next up off the list from 1992. This is another one of those debatable first appearances. But I'm just going to tell you, in my opinion, I believe this is the character's first appearance, and the one that they're calling his first appearance is more of a preview. I know a few people would probably agree with me, some wouldn't. But anyway, we have Spiderman 2099, issue number 1. This is the first full appearance of Miguel O'Hara as Spider-Man 2099. And I know they have ASM 365 listed as his first appearance as well, but that was more of like a preview of the first few pages of this book. So, personally, I consider this the first appearance. And I have 2 of them, so it's cool. And I have the other one too, so it really don't matter to me which one they do, but to me, I honestly believe this is true first appearance. Alright, coming from us from 1980. This was the conclusion of a very popular Chris Claremont storyline. We have Uncanny XMen issue number 137. This is the death of Jean Grey, or the death of Dark Phoenix, however you want to put it. Because later on we'd find out that Jean was actually at the bottom of, I think it was Jamaica Bay, after the events of Uncanny X-Men 101, and that the Phoenix Force put her in some kind of cocoon and copied or cloned her body, etc., etc. But anyway, at the time, this was listed as the death of Jean Grey. This is also the first appearance of Ratzor, and the first appearance of Beldan. I don't even remember who these characters were. I figured they're probably aliens, maybe a part of the Imperial Guard. But this is a classic conclusion to a classic storyline, considered by many, including myself, to be one of the best X-Men stories ever made. And now you can't get this one fairly cheap, although maybe somewhat cheap. I know they have a facsimile reprint or just a reprint of this, but if you can't get the single issues of the Dark Phoenix Saga, pick up a trade. They've got them in paperback and hardcover. It's a really great series, like I said, and I think you'll enjoy it. The next book comes to us from 1984, and I knew it was only a matter of time before I get to talk about this one. This is Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars issue number 8. Now, at one point in time, a long time ago, I'd have told you this was the first appearance of the alien costume, but that has since been changed. This is the origin of the alien symbiote that would later become Venom. It would bond with Eddie Brock and become Venom. That is the key significance of this book. The Secret War storyline, whether it had any keys or not, was just a badass storyline to collect. It's 12 issues. I think at the time taping of this video, I need 2 that I don't have, and then 1 I need to replace because it's kind of seen better days. I believe it has a detached cut. I believe off the top of my head I need issues 2, 4, and 6, and I'll have the entire run for the first time ever. But I do have it in trade, so it is what it is. Now, if you try to buy these single, get ready to spend some money because this book commands a high premium, and some of the others have started spiking up due to the announcement of the Secret Wars movies and certain characters popping up here or there. So if you can't afford the single set, you can always buy the trade, or I'm pretty sure they have it in hardbound as well. But this is another one up there with Crisis that I think should be read. It's a really great series. And speaking of Crisis, this is how we're going to end this episode. We have another Crisis book featuring the legendary art of the iconic legend, George Perez. We have Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue number 12, and the key significance besides the fact that this was made, the art was done by a badass person as George Perez. That should be key significance enough in my opinion. But the key significance on that states that this is the first appearance of Wally West as the new Flash after, Barry kind of at the end of issue 8. I'm joking. He did pass away, but he saved us all, even though nobody knew about it in the story. Anyway, this is a really great story. I've talked about it endlessly, and I will talk about till the day I die. If there's one DC event that you read, this is it. You can get it single issues, you can get it in trades, hardcovers, digital. If you get a chance to read this, get it. I would say just if you want to own a piece of George's artwork, to get the single issues, because I believe you can still find a set for, I say fairly reasonable, but it depends on what your pocketbook defines as fairly reasonable. But it is a great series to get nonetheless. That's going to do it for episode 5 of Tony's Keys. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, coming up later on this week on Tony's Comic Spotlight, we're going to do a spotlight on the first appearance of Jack Russell, the Werewolf by Night, in Marvel Spotlight issue number 2. Also, this Saturday, Tony's, Into the Comiverse, episode 11 returns. And with this being spooky season, we're going to talk about horror comics. Some of our favorite horror comics. It could be based on horror, supernatural, get that Halloween vibe going. So that ought to be a lot of fun. That'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central on the first Saturday in October, or this Saturday. So until then, I'll see you next time. Take it easy, be safe, and God bless.